I'm Melanie. I live in Lincolnshire. I live with my partner and my 1-year-old beagle pup who keep me fit and busy every day. I've recently graduated and I'm in a transitional period where I'm moving to working as a psychotherapist. I've spent 3 years at university training to do that. But also for the last 3 years, I've worked for the British Heart Foundation as a fundraising manager. And yes, I'm a very busy lady. Yeah,
Interesting, yeah. And well done you for your graduation. We'll
thank
talk
you.
about the psychotherapy a bit later. As this is a sobriety podcast, let's just touch on your relationship with alcohol, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was reflecting on this and I thought, I'm not sure if there's such a thing as a healthy relationship with alcohol. However, it wouldn't be true of me to say that I don't drink. I love a glass of wine. I enjoy champagne at a wedding or a real ale. I love a real ale on a sunny day. I was reflecting on my relationship with alcohol through growing up. I remember being a teenager and drinking cider in the park like you do when you're coming of age. I remember some of the girls going to hospital and having their stomachs pumped and thinking that I couldn't imagine that wanting to be me. I was probably really scared of getting into trouble for being that person. But also, I think when I was very young, my mum was in a car accident and I was only 6 years old. So my mum was probably 27. So she was young herself. And she had been on a night out with her two best friends and a young man who was 17 at the time and had been drinking, stole a pickup truck with his friend, and he hit my mum and her friends head on. Everybody in the car accident died except for my mum. And she was pronounced dead twice and revived twice, and then became the sole survivor of a car accident. I think at 6 years old, that has impacted me massively. And we can talk about that in terms of psychotherapy. But subconsciously, I think it always planted something in me about drinking and driving for sure. And just how one silly decision can have such an impact on so many people. My mum's best friend had 3 children, and the other young man in the car was only 19.
Yeah, because I think most children at the age of 6, alcohol isn't even on their radar for obvious reasons. But for you, that you knew that it was alcohol that had caused that complete chaos and havoc. As you say, subconsciously, that must have struck a real deep chord that alcohol equals danger and
Yeah.
mayhem.
Yeah, absolutely. Devastation. And I really noticed in myself growing up when I would hear about people that would say, oh, I'm just going to drive and I've had a drink, and I almost would feel this rage filling up inside of me because it's not just them that are at risk, it's the people that they encounter on that journey. So that was definitely one thing. And I drank as a teenager going out and dancing, but I don't think I've ever been to the point where I've not known what I was doing. That's always been quite scary for me, to remain in control and feel safe. And there was one occasion where I had my drink spiked and it was just a dreadful experience. Again, I think that sort of reaffirms that I need to just know that I'm safe and in control. And if I go beyond a certain point, I don't have that. Yeah, I guess I feel quite, in a weird way, grateful for that off switch. And I can open a bottle of wine and have a glass and then leave it. I'm not saying all the time, not all the time. If I'm not enjoying it, then I won't drink it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm very sad that you had such a traumatic introduction to alcohol, but I'm happy for you that you've got a safe relationship. So something came out of it. Let's talk about your work at the Heart Foundation, the British Heart Foundation. People here in South Africa won't have heard of it probably.
And it's interesting that, because I think what the British Heart Foundation do almost ricochets worldwide in terms of research. It's been going about 61 years. We fund over half of all research here in the UK into heart and circulatory diseases. So that encompasses heart disease, stroke, vascular dementia, and diabetes. So I'd be very convinced that a lot of the research that happens here impacts other countries. We know at the moment, very sadly, that heart disease is the biggest killer of the human population worldwide.
Including us women.
Absolutely. And it takes the lives of twice as many women as breast cancer,
Oh,
which is a fact that not a lot of people know. So as much as we've come so far as a charity, maybe 60 years ago, 7 out of 10 people did not survive a heart attack. Today, 7 out of 10 people do survive a heart attack. So that is massive. Unfortunately, heart disease is still the biggest killer, which is just tragic.
Yeah. We could do with a heart disease awareness month, couldn't we?
Yeah, so the BHF have slowly cottoned onto that. So in February, we have Heart Month here in the UK.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So we get businesses and schools and people to engage in what we do, because I think a lot of people don't understand what we actually do as a charity and how significant the research is. For example, if you know someone that takes a statin, statins were created by a BHF researcher. If you know somebody that's had a heart transplant or a stent fitted, a lot of that has come from research that is done here at the BHF. So it does really have a wider reach than just here. And my role is to support individuals, businesses, schools, groups, anybody that decides that they want to fundraise. And a lot of the time that can be a real double-edged sword, because it could be because they've lost somebody very suddenly and they feel empowered to do something. So it's part of their kind of grief process. So I meet lots of different people, and I support fundraisers out in the community. I'm a people person. I love people. So it's a really lovely job. I get to meet some incredibly inspirational people.
Sounds like it. Yeah, I'm sure you're great at that. Let's talk about alcohol in our hearts. What effect does it have?
I've included some links that you can share where there's
Thank you.
lots of information about this. And just to caveat, I guess I'm not a nurse or a doctor, but what I understand from my work at the BHF is that I don't think there's anywhere that will say that drinking alcohol will make you healthier or will be of benefit to your organs, let's say. Certainly, we know that too much alcohol will raise your blood pressure, increase your weight, and that then contributes to cardiovascular disease, which in turn increases your risk of having a heart attack, a stroke, or type 2 diabetes. You've got things in there like damage to the heart muscle, abnormal heart rhythm. We know that drinking a large amount of alcohol in one go can actually slow down your heart rate and your breathing to quite a dangerous level. So that's quite a big one. And over time, if you have high blood pressure, and I always say to people when I talk to them about their heart health, the one thing you can do for yourself is know your blood pressure, know your numbers, and have a blood pressure monitor at home and check it, because when something is off in your blood pressure, it's often the first indication that something is wrong. Yeah. But we know that drinking and consuming alcohol regularly in larger amounts will create high blood pressure, and that puts a strain on the heart. So once you get into that category of having consistently high blood pressure, you're then at more risk of having a heart attack. Or
how often should we take our blood pressure at home?
I would say 2 or 3 times a week. If you think something's up, then I'd be checking it every day. I know there's quite a lot of ladies that are in your group. So I always say to ladies when I talk about women and heart health, that this statistic that we have about cardiovascular disease killing twice as many women as breast cancer, there's lots of reasons for that. One of the reasons is we have a big gender bias in the medical industry around women and heart health. Over 10 years, the BHF did a piece of research where they found that a significant amount of women died unnecessarily because they were misdiagnosed at the point of having a heart attack. We know that men emit a chemical called troponin when they're having a heart attack, and women don't tend to. Over this 10-year period, we found significant numbers of women had died because they'd been misdiagnosed. So we have a gender issue in the medical industries of people tend to think that heart disease is an overweight, middle-aged white,
Yeah.
and I meet young,
The man
fit,
with a
healthy.
pint.
Yeah, absolutely, eating a steak. But I meet young, healthy women in their 20s, 30s, 40s. And I think the other thing with women is we give birth, so we have a very high pain threshold, if that is the thing. And I meet lots of people who have fobbed off their symptom, or I've done too much this week, or I'm just tired, or I haven't eaten enough, and this chest pain or this nausea or whatever it is brushed aside. I haven't got time for this.
Yeah, we're too stoic for our own good sometimes, aren't we?
Absolutely. And I think that probably has an impact as well.
Yeah. What kind of symptoms should we be looking out for, Mel?
Do you know, it's really difficult. There's quite a lot of different research on this, and it's subjective because I hate to specifically put labels on a gender and say everybody is the same, because I think depending on your body frame, your size, your weight, we could all experience it differently. But generally, it would be obviously a chest pain, potentially pain in the left arm, down the left arm. If someone is having a heart attack, they might become breathless, sweating. With women, there was a recent study that suggested that in the 6 months before a heart attack, lots of women felt nausea as a symptom, so just unusually feeling sick. It might be that you're making the bed and feel out of breath, and that's not normal for you. Again, that might be where someone might say, "Oh, it's a bit weird," and not think anything else of it. But if it's not normal for you, then I would recommend you question it, really. That's the key, I think.
And what would you do? Go to your GP and say,
So you call 999 or whatever it is. Call the emergency services for sure, or get somebody to a hospital. Again, if you have a look at the BHF website, there'll be lots of resources about this. They might say in some instances to take half an aspirin, or again, I'm not a doctor, but there's lots of information at bhf.org.uk about what to do if this is happening, what to look out for, what you can do to help. But get help as soon as possible. I think it's important to remember the difference between a heart attack and a cardiac arrest.
the difference?
If someone's having a heart attack, they would be breathless, sweating, but coherent. They'd be able to communicate with you, answer questions. They might be holding their chest or their arm, but you would be able to have some sort of communication with them. If somebody has had a cardiac arrest, it's different because it's like the electrical circuit in the heart has switched off. So it's like switching a light switch off, which is why when we think about defibrillators, what they're doing is trying to bring the electrical circuit back online. So the difference would be that somebody going into cardiac arrest, they would just be out. There would be no communication, no coherence, and very quickly would start to turn blue and they wouldn't be breathing. We have a free tool on our website, the BHF, called Reviver. Everybody can learn CPR at home with a mobile phone and a cushion off the sofa or the bed for free. It takes 15 minutes. It's a great thing to do as a group, and I think it just really helps to plant that seed around what to do in a cardiac arrest situation and how to do chest compressions, because they're very easy. The actual idea and the structure of CPR is very easy, but lots of people are very scared of it. So what we've tried to do with Reviver is talk people through it so that consciously, subconsciously, there's a process in their brain that helps them, if they ever come across that situation, feel more confident in having a go. So yeah, I'll pop that link over to you as well.
Please, that sounds fantastic. Yeah. I must admit, I think about that sometimes. I think because my husband's, in his 80s now, and I think, oh, what if he had a heart attack? What would I do? I will definitely have a look at that.
Yes.
Fortunately, he's extremely fit and healthy, but
Again, as I say, heart conditions, no, they don't choose based on your wellness, unfortunately. Yeah, I think if you can have that knowledge, you can feel empowered that if something happens, you'd be in a position to do something.
Yes, because that must be the worst, just feeling powerless.
Yeah.
What do you think about these so-called low-risk guidelines of alcohol that are quite well known in the UK? 14 units a week.
When I think about 14 units a week, for me, that feels like a lot. I
It is a lot.
Yeah. Considering, some weeks I might not have any and some weeks I might have 4 or 5. I think 14 seems like such a lot.
I think that needs looking at again, really, because it's been like that for years now, if not a decade. And in Canada, for example, they've reduced that to 2 drinks a week. And they've based that on the latest research, specifically on cancer links, because
Yes.
alcohol is related to 7
Yeah.
types of cancer.
Yeah.
And they've updated their units specifically relating to that research. Drink aware, isn't it, that puts them
Yeah,
at those.
that's
They need to
absolutely.
look at it again.
Yeah.
But one of their sponsors is the alcohol industries. That website annoys me a little bit because it never says quit drinking. It always says moderate. Don't have more than this. People like me, we can't moderate. We've tried that for at least a decade because we never wanted to quit at that time. It's almost giving people the green light to keep moderating indefinitely, and
Yeah.
that's not.
Well, it's like to quit smoking and having a
Yeah.
nicotine patch.
Well,
It's a similar thing. And I think about as well, when I grew up in the era where alcopops became trendy and
yeah.
alcohol went from being quite strong spirits, or my dad drank whiskey or whatever, to these fruity, fizzy, delicious, sweet, sugar-filled things. And I think it's probably very easy as well, based on our human addiction to sugar, to very easily consume 14 sweet alcoholic drinks that
Yeah.
don't taste anything like alcohol.
Yeah.
You take something like tequila rosé, for example, and it tastes like strawberry milkshake. It blows my mind that something can taste that it's got no alcohol in it at all, and yet it
Yeah.
has.
Yeah, and some cocktails that are just
Yeah.
loaded with sugar, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think that it's evolved, hasn't it, to a point where it's probably easier to drink 14 units as well because it's much nicer.
Yeah. And there's so much misinformation about red wine as well. Red wine is good for you, and it's not. Drinkers like me, I'm not anymore, but when I was, I would see an article in the press, red wine is good for you, good for your heart, they often say, and I'd think, oh, that's nice, and I'd have another glass.
This comes up in a lot of my talks at the BHF, and we would always say, yes, red wine may contain some antioxidants, which are good for your heart. However, a punnet of blueberries would be even better.
Absolutely.
It's not so much the wine as the antioxidants, which you could get in a different mode, which would be much better for you.
So, Mel, apart from not drinking too much, what else can people do to keep their hearts healthy?
Again, I think it's subjective based on what you can do and how active you can be, but definitely being active is something, even if that's just walking. We have lots of these challenges where we challenge people to walk 100 kilometers in 6 weeks, or just to start getting into a routine of just walking, because walking is very gentle. Exercise is huge in terms of keeping your heart healthy. Diet is massive. It's really key. Getting your 5 a day or 10 a day. I'm not sure what the government recommendations are now, but certainly eating a good amount of fruits and vegetables and pulses and all protein and all of the things that physically we need. Smoking is pretty much a no when it comes to heart health, just because of how the arteries get clogged up through smoking. And I think it really comes down to lifestyle. There's a caveat to that, which is that some people do have a genetic heart condition that is passed down through genes in families, and you could live the healthiest lifestyle ever and still have a genetic heart condition or something that's come down through your family line. So it would be unfair of me to say that having a healthy lifestyle would eliminate your chance.
No, it can't guarantee anything, can it?
Yeah,
But it can still improve the odds.
Yeah, I think regular exercise, eating well, ideally not drinking or smoking. I've sent a link over for this, but we have a free magazine called Heart Matters. And wherever you are in the world, you can subscribe to that, and it can come via email. And in there, we have lots of information about how to live well, how to exercise if you've got a heart condition, healthy recipes, research articles. Really great. It's called Heart Matters, and it's free for everybody. So again, if people are looking to improve their heart health, that's a great place to start.
Fantastic, fantastic. At least with smoking these days, it's undergone a kind of societal change, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's not cool to smoke anymore. In fact, you're almost a pariah if you smoke, and you don't smoke in restaurants, and you don't smoke in planes. They used to smoke in planes. Can
Yeah,
you
it
believe that?
does. It's crazy, isn't it? We were talking about this the other day, just talking about, going into a bar or a restaurant as a non-smoker and coming home and your clothes just absolutely stinking of cigarettes the next day, even if you'd never even touched a cigarette.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think that in some ways that's definitely helped. Yeah, smoking definitely is not great for the heart, and the circulatory system as a whole is all connected. Whatever's pumping through your heart is pumping around your brain and body as well. That's why we talk about heart and circulatory diseases, because it's all connected.
Yeah. And I personally think that alcohol is gradually going the way that smoking went, because a lot of the young people, especially in the UK, they don't drink. I mean, there was a headline, I don't know how reliable it was, but in the Sunday Times, UK Sunday Times on Sunday, and it said half of young people don't drink these days.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was 19 or something, I think the non-drinkers were such a tiny minority, but now it's positively cool to be sober, and there's so many sober influencers on Instagram, and it's lovely. It's really encouraging.
Yeah, it's very visible in the supermarkets actually here, because perhaps once upon a time where you would have to spend 10 minutes looking for something that was alcohol free, there's whole aisles dedicated to it in our supermarkets now, and you can tell that it's more popular. And my dad, he has a heart, not a great heart. There's sort of heart conditions in the male side of my family. And my dad's always loved a pint of Guinness. He just loves it. And they've made a zero Guinness. And it's incredibly popular here because the taste is just almost as good, really, but without the alcohol.
Yeah, the alcohol-free beer is fantastic. I never used to drink beer when I was a drinker. Sauvignon Blanc was my poison, but now I drink beer because the alcohol-free wine doesn't taste nice.
Yes.
So the beer is amazing. And obviously all the breweries have clocked this, that people are wanting something more healthy, so they're all putting out their own versions.
Like you said about the societal image, now I think there's some bars I've been in where you can go and have a beer on tap that's alcohol free. So it's not just coming out of a bottle. So I experience the feeling like you're in a pub and you're having a drink without all of the complications is really good, isn't it? Yeah. I think it's really interesting to see that shift.
It is, because I quit 10 years ago and things have changed so much. There were no alcohol-free drinks at all around in those days. What about real ale? Can you get your real ale alcohol-free yet?
I don't think I've had an alcohol-free real ale, no. So that'll be an interesting one. I'm sure there is. We have a little brewery shop here in Lincoln that maybe would probably have that, but yeah, we'll see.
Now, we've got a mutual friend called Helen. She came to our community last February, so a year ago. She came to one of our boot camps that we do every few months on Facebook. We do these free boot camps. Then she signed up for our 3-month Breaking Free program, and she's never looked back, has she? And now she is what I love to see, actually, and I see it quite often in Tribe Sober. We meet someone like Helen, and I still remember her talking to us in the Facebook group, and it was February and the weather was awful in the UK and full of gloom and doom, and didn't believe in herself, didn't believe she could ever change the alcohol thing.
Yeah.
Now the transformation, not only does she look happy and healthy, but she's helping other people so much. She's encouraging people. And it's so valuable, because as someone like myself that's been sober nearly 10 years, a brand new person that's struggling can't really relate to that. It seems impossible. Whereas Helen, someone like her, because she's relatively newly sober, she really inspires so many people. I know you've been friends for 20 years or something. What's been your perception of her transformation?
I mean, it's just incredible. And one of the reasons I'm here with you, Janet, because I was just so captivated by Tribe Sober and the idea and the ethos, and having trained as a therapist with, certainly in my group, people that had been absolutely in the depths of despair with addiction. And when I say addiction, I mean everything: alcohol, drugs, sex, everything, gambling, really in that spiraled place. And having talked a lot about alcohol and recovery and how people have got to that recovery place and how long it's taken, and whether that's been through AA or psychotherapy or whatever. And the absolutely dreadful statistics, and don't quote me, but they are dreadful, I think, on people that go into recovery and actually recover. So here's my friend. She's like the lotus flower that's been buried in the mud for so long and has just come up to the water and is just absolutely beaming. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Her eyes have got the sparkle back, her skin, just how she is with herself, in relationship with herself. And this is very much the girl I met 20 years ago. And somewhere in the middle, life has got challenging and difficult. And I suspect, like lots of people, there's potentially an avoidance in facing into that and leaning into that. And alcohol becomes the substitute for shutting some of that out. But it's been a very gradual process that I've seen her become more dependent on it. But in a year, to see her come completely independent of, and just the transformation in her is just phenomenal. I've thought about this a lot, thinking about recovery and thinking about, as a friend, I didn't know what to do to help her. And I remember driving her in tears to an AA meeting and saying, we've got to go in here. You've got to do something. I don't know what else to do to help you, but I feel like you need to be in a place where other people are experiencing. She tried that for a while and it wasn't for her, and it isn't for a lot of people. And so in finding you guys, I think the beauty of Tribe Sober is the community. And from day one, she's been in a group where whatever she's feeling in any moment, she can reach out to somebody and somebody gets it and somebody is there. Whether she's sat on her sofa at home or out in the car at work or having a meal in a restaurant, there's always somebody to respond. And I think that is incredibly powerful. To have that kind of group, that tribe of people, I think is just magical, Janet. And I congratulate you and all of you on that, because I'm sure there are other things that are very similar, but there's something about this group that seems, I don't know, just extra special. And I have seen the results of it in her. And I don't even say she's got her life back. She's going on and getting even more life than she maybe even had before.
Yeah, I mean, her future is going to look so different now. I loved what you said about you getting back the Helen that you met really 20 years ago, because we lose ourselves when we drink too much. That is literally what happens. We lose connection with who we are, what we want out of life. I was just thinking about Helen having a lovely friend like yourself that really cares about her. But we often say to people, you need a tribe of people that have been through this, because only those people will really understand what you're going through. You tried to help her with AA, that wasn't her thing. But then in Tribe Sober, she just had a tribe within a tribe, as she called it, on one of our programs. And there was no holding back. I don't know if she's told you the story that they're all planning to retire together on Butterfly Boulevard.
She has. What a glorious thought that is. And I think if you think back to our basic needs as humans, we are relational beings.
Yeah.
Being in that place where nobody really truly knows how you feel on your own and isolated, it's very difficult to come out of that. Very difficult, I think. And to be with a tribe of people that are going through something similar, albeit each person's experience is probably different on some level, but to have that community, that tribe, we were born to be in tribes. There's safety in a tribe, community in a tribe. I've seen Helen's friendship circle grow exponentially. She's traveling to Copenhagen. She's planning a trip to South Africa. She messaged me last week and said, could I postpone our March date because I want to go and visit another lady in Paris? for me to see her taking on life like that and the world
Yeah.
and surrounding herself with people that really know where she's been and where she wants to go is incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
Incredibly
no,
empowering. It's really wonderful.
It's been lovely to see. It really has. Let's go back to you. We could talk about Helen for hours, but
We could.
we better not. Why did you decide to study psychotherapy?
Oh, that's a big question. Having had a bit of a varied career, I think someone once described my CV as phantasmagorical because I've done so many things in my life, but it sounds cheesy. But I think there's always, on some level, been a bit of a calling to me in terms of helping other people. That's fundamentally been at my core. I also understand that my trauma as a child with the car accident and everything that kind of unfolded around that almost programmed me to be a therapist at 6 years old because my family fell apart.
Of course I did, yeah.
I think I became a carer, a confidant, all of those things at a very young age. So I decided that it was a route I wanted to go down. I've been a bit of a flibbity-gibbet with careers, and I've had some incredible careers. But this was a serious commitment. 3 years at university while I worked full-time. Aside from that, all the clinical obligations. So I had 3 years of therapy myself, so I know what it's like to be in that position. I've done 200 hours of client work while I've been training. So it's been a really complex process, but it's very rewarding, like with Helen, watching somebody understand themselves and really want to do the work to improve their lives. As a therapist, I feel like I'm the facilitator of that, but actually the client does all of the work themselves. Yeah, I think it's just a calling to want to help others, really. And nursing was never my thing. I love people and caring for people, but not in a physical way. I remember being 7 or 8 years old and asking myself really existential questions like, why am I here? And why was I born into this family? Why have I got this mum and dad? Really big questions for a small person.
Yeah. You must have been so cute, this little subby. These big questions.
Well, I think I'm forever curious. I've trained as a humanistic and integrative psychotherapist, and my belief system is that we are broken and healed in relationship. So it goes back to what you said about the tribe and about being and connection and human connection. What is missed in relationship, whether that's when we're young or teenagers or adults, is repaired in relationship. And I think that the therapeutic space offers a space for that as well. So that's me, I think, until I retire, probably, Janet.
Yeah, so it's a career you can carry on doing forever, really, and you get older and wiser, I presume.
This is very true. I've spent 3 years training, but like anything in this kind of field, I think the learning comes with every client that you work with. People are our greatest teachers.
Yeah. How would you define psychotherapy for someone who hasn't got a clue what it is?
I think it's a space. It's something that offers a safe, non-judgmental space for a person to bring whatever it is that is making them feel that they need help and support. Carl Rogers, person-centered therapist, talks about becoming fully functioning human beings. And I think people often come to therapy when they are in despair. So actually a lot has happened before they've got to this point to actually come. It's allowing a space for that, whatever that is, whatever is feeling adrift or uncomfortable or not, that is making this person unhappy, is offering a safe and non-judgmental space for that. I think it's an incredibly powerful thing where people can truly be seen.
Yeah. And what role can it play in recovery from alcohol dependence, for example?
I think this is a very complex question, but if you think about, and I appreciate everybody is different, but my general thoughts on becoming dependent on alcohol would lend to again, perhaps that avoidance of something that's not feeling right, avoiding dealing with that, the alcohol becomes a substitute for that. So I guess it's, where did that start and what are we avoiding by drinking? It might be something as simple as a stressful lifestyle with 3 kids and a job and a husband, and just living in that chronic stress, cortisol driven mode. It might just be that. It might be a trauma from a childhood that's never been processed properly. When we talk about trauma, it's interesting because trauma obviously can be an instant, like I experienced, like a very sudden trauma or a death or an accident or something like that. But trauma can also be in childhood a series of misattunements. We call that developmental trauma, where a small person, that their needs have consistently been unmet. So that manifests in adult life and can bring people to therapy. I think it's very dependent on each individual person, and Helen and I have had extensive conversations about this. That's very difficult for me because I'm her friend and not her therapist. So
Yes.
I tended to guide her to a therapist because I have too much information, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when you are able to tap in to the core wound, let's say, and really flush it out, then there's great benefit in that. The caveat, I would say, especially with perhaps people that are very dependent on alcohol, is I trained as a hypnotherapist as well, and you will know this, Janet, having somebody stop drinking straight away when they drink a lot of alcohol is actually very dangerous. But coming into psychotherapy, if people want to work on the wound or the thing that they've been avoiding for so long, whether it's a relationship issue or a trauma or a financial issue or whatever it is, opening up that wound will be difficult and painful. So my caveat would be that it's important that people that come into therapy have some support outside of the therapy room as well. Ethically and morally, for me, it's important that people know that, because it can be a really intense process and it can be painful. But on the other side of that is joy and freedom and liberation and feeling like your true authentic self. And I think maybe, again, the tribe that you have, that safety net of all these other people to be able to support, is really important.
Yeah. And do you do consultations online?
I do, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
We have listeners in the US and UK, obviously, in South Africa. So if some of those people wanted to contact you and book
Yep.
a session, they could.
Absolutely, yeah. Time different dependent, obviously. As much as I really enjoy working in person, it is absolutely possible to work online if the person is a safe, secure space and that they're able to open up, obviously. But yeah, absolutely.
I used to run physical workshops until COVID came along and changed everything. And then I thought, I wonder if I should try them on Zoom. And I was so apprehensive because when we have the physical workshops and people begin by sharing where they are on their journey, there's lots of tears and hugging and it's very emotional. I thought, how is that going to work? But we still have tears.
And isn't it interesting, because Helen wouldn't have found you if
No.
you didn't have the online offering, and so her life would be on the trajectory that it's on now. So
Yeah,
that in itself is phenomenal, isn't it? It's
whoever thought something good could come out of COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, it certainly does open up that opportunity.
Yeah, great. So give me your contact details.
So my email address is lincolnshirepsychotherapy.co.uk. Anyone can submit a form or an inquiry through there, through the submission form, or email me, linkspsychotherapist@gmail.com.
They can have a discovery call just to see if they like you and you like them.
We laugh about that, but it's actually very important.
Yeah, no.
If you really want to work with someone and do the work that can be difficult, then the connection with the therapist has to be there. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a kind of chemistry meeting, isn't it? We do it in coaching as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really interesting with coaching. I was talking to a coach the other day, and we were talking about how very often with coaching, we're looking forward and driving
Mm.
forward in terms of goals. And with psychotherapy, very often we're going backwards to
Yeah.
kind of look at what's been missed or not healed. And sometimes you have to it's like an arrow, isn't it? Sometimes you have to go backwards before you can be propelled forwards. And
Yes.
so I think there's some real beauty in connecting psychotherapy and coaching, and that they can meet in the middle somewhere and enable somebody to move forward. I think really truly knowing your authentic self and who you are outside of who everybody has told you're going to be or supposed to be all your life.
Yes.
And this was something Helen and I have talked extensively about. So I think, yeah, finding that authenticity is really empowering.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to mention before I pull the plug on you?
Yeah, thank you to the whole 𝐼 community for, giving one of my
Giving you your friend back.
an absolutely new lease of life. I've been there and supported her throughout this whole journey, and I'm sure people that are connected to people in the group will feel this sense of helplessness when you're
Yes.
trying to support somebody.
Yeah.
And accepting that is really difficult. And I think that what you offer is just a wonderful, incredible thing. And I said this to Helen. If you hadn't been through this journey, you wouldn't be on this new journey now. And it's really important to reflect on what it's given you as well as what it's taken away from you.
We often say that, actually, Mel. When I realized I would have to give up drinking, I was terribly depressed about it. I thought, oh, the good times are over now. That was then. This was going to be all dreary and boring. But so many of us within the tribe, we've got completely different lives, different careers. And now that you have perspective, you can think, that was actually the best thing that ever happened to get myself into that fix.
Yeah.
At the beginning, you're so jealous of all the people that can just have the odd glass of wine like yourself.
Yeah.
But we realized that that happened to us for a reason, and we deconstructed ourselves and rebuilt our lives. So we see it as a blessing now, and definitely in Helen's case, I don't know if she sees that yet, but she will in a
She
few
will.
years.
I think it's Andrew Huberman, the neuroscientist, who says that regular drinkers actually release more cortisol when they're not drinking. So actually they feel more stress and anxiety when they're not drinking. I love the analogy of the arrow, that you have to pull an arrow backwards to be able to pull it forwards. And everything that she's lost has brought her to what she's now able to gain and give. Because like you say, she's giving so much to other people.